was looking for my prop, but there's actually a bigger one that I couldn't quite pull off the side there. But this is the American flag, as many of you know. And if you're all Democrats, supposedly we don't know what to do with the flag. I don't know if you saw CNN today, but earlier today in Colorado Springs, the other side had their presidential and vice presidential candidate, and in the warm-up, they had 75,000 flags that they said were not used at the Invesco Center in Denver. And then, after warming the crowd up to that extent, the press closed the loop. Those were the flags that had indeed been used in Denver and were repackaged, and some Republican cabal had stolen our flag. And I bring this up because I was born and raised on Standing Rock, McIntosh, little small town. We were all poor, but we were culturally very rich because of the diversity of the ethnic settlers that settled there, the native people that were there to begin with. My grandfather was a Slovak American, and he spoke one of the many brands of broken English that everyone on the reservation spoke. And he'd always say, "In this house, we speak only American." And then he'd switch to Slovak or German or cousin half a dozen of the European languages he could use. But he'd also lecture me. I was a little boy of 10, and he died when he was 85. But shortly before he died, he was 5'5", very fiery, scared the heck out of my big uncles. They called him the old man, but of course as soon as the old man appeared, they all got very humble. And he said, "Young man, don't ever forget D people." And that's how he referred to the Lakota people on Standing Rock, because it was D people that had helped the settler family learn how to ranch and farm. He'd been a coal miner, and he was a butcher, but he knew nothing about ranching and farming. And almost like the stereotype of the Pilgrims at Plymouth Rock, those early settlers were fully dependent on the people that were here originally. As a consequence, I was brought up in a family that felt that we always had to give in return because of how good the people had been to us. And as a state senator, I worked very hard to try to represent my very diverse economic district. District 32 starts out on Highway 79. There's a number of low-income apartments, a number of young Native women, single moms. There's also a lot of young white folks that are going to Western Dakota Tech, a poor area. You go up into Robbinsdale. Robbinsdale's the old blue-collar area of Rapid City. And then as you move up the scale, as you move up the elevation, the class changes. You hit the young professionals in the new Robbinsdale area, then up on West Boulevard, the old wealth, and then finally, way up on Skyline Drive, you have the McMansions. So it's one of the most diverse districts economically. We also have about 7% Native American, 2% African, 2% Latino, and Asian in that mix. So very diverse, and I have tried very hard to represent all of those people. And I think it's very important that we not demonize each other, that we don't put each other in camps, but that we reach out to everyone. And as Obama says, we're not red Americans, we're not blue Americans, we're all Americans. In Pierre, I've been assigned to 3 standing committees and then the summer study committees. I serve on health, I serve on commerce, and I serve on local government. And then during the summers, I serve on the State Tribal Relations Committee. And this is perhaps the most unique committee in the entire legislature. It is a bipartisan and bicameral committee. It's half Republicans, half Democrats, half House, and half Senate. And Teresa Two-Bolts, who I believe is here tonight, and hopefully will be speaking a little later on, is co-chair of that committee. And I think it's probably been one of the most successful we've had. We've had hearings for the past 2 years on 5 different reservations and here in Rapid City. And from those field hearings, then we're able to build a case for legislation. And I think that's the way government really should work. I'm not going to go much further. And Eric, I'm going to try my clothes. Years ago, when I was young, I was in the Peace Corps, responded to John Kennedy's astronaut challenge, and was fortunate, after having served in the military first right out of high school, to later be a Peace Corps volunteer. I've always felt I've had a little bit of a split personality ever since. And John Kennedy was a real favorite, but the one that really touched my heart was Bobby. Bobby was the one that came out of wealth, and initially when people worked with him, African Americans especially, were not impressed with him because they felt he just had grown up with such privilege that he didn't relate. But he came out of that upper class and he got down with the people in Appalachia and on Pine Ridge. A few hours before he was assassinated, we had a primary out here that same day, and he was in California for the wrap-up, and this was about 10 o'clock at night, Western time, and a couple of hours he was dead. But he made a call out here to Jeff Smith, who was his aide, and he said, "Jeff, how are we doing on the reservation?" And he says, "Well, Senator, you know, it's rural, so most of the precincts are still coming in, but the village of Pine Ridge is in." And he said, "Well, how do we do, Jeff?" And he said, "Well, Senator, it was 672 to 2. And there was a long pause, and Bobby, with his wit, said, "Jeff, how in the heck did we lose 2 votes?" Fast forward, in 1980, Bill Walsh was campaigning for Teddy Kennedy, and Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Bill and I went down to the reservation. I was running for Congress at the time. I told that same story to about 600 people, and one old wag in the crowd lifts his hand and he says, "I know who those 2 were. It was Dick Wilson and his brother." The former tribal chairman. That was not true. Dick Wilson was supporting Bobby Kennedy as well. But Kennedy had this great connection with people, and I would hope that all of us could emulate that. We were fortunate this spring to have Ethel Kennedy back out with Bill again on behalf of Obama and Max Kennedy. It was just wonderful to have that reconnection. And this year, to me, feels so much like that same '68 time when our hearts were lifted with Martin Luther King, with Bobby Kennedy, and then the tragic assassinations. We, in my judgment, are at the same sort of crossroads. We've got a war that hopefully we're finally winding down. It's cost us way too much in national treasure. But we have an opportunity to change this country. And certainly we need to have Obama and Biden leading that change. The other side now claiming that they're change agents just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Finally, I'm going to get to Bobby's close. He used to frequently close his speeches quoting the Bard, saying, "Some dream dreams and ask the question why. I dream dreams that never were and ask the question why not." And my add-on to that would be, why not the re-election of Tim Johnson and Stephanie Hirsch as senator? Why not a 2/3 majority or a majority in the Senate? Bringing just 3 more across. Why not a veto-proof House? And why not 2 years from now electing a governor, Percy Salmon or Scott Heideprim? And why not this year bring America home with Barack Obama and Joe Biden? And no darn Republican's going to steal my flag.